Attack 23.
I should have guarded the first. Hey everyone, this is Carbon. I bring you another standard match. Today we are actually going to be featuring Ryukyu once again, playing Mushiking. And on the left we do have Youthberk, and it looks like the game has already started because I put too much faith in the person I trusted to be my cameraman, a mistake that surely will not happen again. Anyways, I guess just to recap what happened, what we missed, Youth went first, discarded the grade 1, which I already forgot, even though I made the video, I already forgot her name. We put a Zest into Soul, I believe, and then we pass over to Ryukyu, who is just going to be using the Crest, as well as the Crest skill to check top 5, calling out a grade 1 here. Swinging with the Vanguard, personally, I think we honestly should have just guarded that with a 15k guard, OT to pass, but looks like we are going to not be doing that, instead taking both of these attacks, going straight to 2. Let's see that her name is Carino, whatever. Anyways, using another Carino here, searching out the deck, getting a Tempest to the hand, and then of course probably just going to be putting the Tempest from the hand into the Soul. I will say, I believe I said this in the Youth video, but Youth has a very unfavorable matchup when it comes to facing off against Bugs, and that is mostly just because Bugs are a deck that can actually dish out enough aggression in the early game that can spell trouble for Youth. As long as Mushiking can, they only need to survive one full blast turn before they're able to close things out, and then they can probably just take the game, run away with the game from there. But we do actually have a little bit of a saving grace for Youth that they did go first, and that is definitely favorable for the Youth player, as they're going to be calling the Fergosa, using the skill, and finally they've seen all 3 combo pieces, so they are completely set up to go into that full blast next turn. Of course, just me swinging the Fergosa at the rear guard, which I think of course is the correct play. We did see a little bit of a silly there, trying to guard with the OT, even though that is a absolutely terrible play, and that is why we decided not to do it, even though our rear guards are super important. As I believe, if you saw the last video I did with Mushiking, the main way to try and get rid of the Bugs is to attack into the grade 1 rear guards. Looks like we're going to be using the Crest skill again, getting something off the top. Can't quite see what it is from here, but it looks like it is another grade 1 if it is still on the board. So we do have the Fergosa there as an intercept. I'm going to be actually activating the Gather Upon Me Wandering Souls, discarding just a spare order, using the skill of the Vanguard for once, giving it an extra 10k, so we have 20k with 2 drive checks. This is kind of a risky thing to do. Looks like we're going to be guarding. That's going to be a 1 to pass. Drive check 1, drive check 2 is actually going to be a heal trigger. We are not going to be able to heal, but we're going to be giving the power to the Vanguard, allowing us to actually hitting into a defensive there, swinging the grade 1 for 23, because we had to give the trigger power to the Vanguard. Of course, that is just going to be a 5k guard, which we are just going to be intercepting with the Fergosa, which honestly might not be the greatest play depending on what you have in your hand, because as I did say in the Youthberk video, you do actually need a lot of rear guards, and of course letting the Fergosa die kind of makes it so that you have to commit more cards from hand. Well, I guess you would have had to commit a card from hand to guard it anyway, but you're potentially getting rid of a card that is an excellent attacker for something that is might not be the greatest attacker. Anyways, we did see grade 2 fetching back the Fergosa that got attacked into, and I think we had another one in drop, so we would have been able to do that anyway, using the skill of Youthberk, actually discarding a Persona Ride copy there to check top 3, and looks like we decided to call nothing. We're just going to call that Fergosa that we added back from our drop zone to our hand. Looks like we only have 1 spare soul there, so probably just going to be soul blasting out the Gust, searching the deck, probably going to be putting another Gust in to replace it. Yep, there it is, putting the Gust into the soul. And then since we do have all 3 here, now we will be able to soul blast that last non-revolve form card in order to actually draw another card. Hopefully we can draw into an actual attacker, because when you're playing Youthberk, you definitely need a complete front row, because if you don't get the full front row, then you're just losing out. You're not going to be you're basically just giving up on basically a trigger and a half. But looks like we are going to not be calling a anything there, like literally anything, like even a grade 1 would be great. But we see the critical trigger flipped over the first youth swing. Gonna be 2 to passing that, which of course is usually the play. Of course you can't always do that if they do have what's her face there, using the full blast to bot deck that grade 1. So once again keeping Mushiking off of what they need or what they're trying to do, as we swing the full blast again, once again at 28 now for 2 damage. Looks like we are just going to be taking it. Makes sense. I think we are slowly starting to run low on cards in hand, as we get another critical trigger here, thankfully hitting to the defensive draw there, being pushed all the way to 4. So it looks like Youthberk has finally started to take tempo back, so Mushiking really has to push a lot of damage or close it out with this grade 3 turn, which maybe proved to be pretty difficult considering the fact that Youthberk didn't call anything from hand, which means they probably have a ton of defensive options there. We did actually use the OT in order to guard the Fergosa there. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, you could have just gone to 5, but there's a huge debate on whether you should like go to 5 or just, you know, use a PG on the last attack, because it doesn't kill you anyway. But I don't know. That's player preference. But we do see the ideal board here, actually, with a grade 1, a grade 2, and then, of course, your grade 3 Vanguard, meaning that you will be able to use all 3 of your orders, which is basically the main game plan for Mushiking. You want to be able to have 1 of each grade in your front row. Kind of bad that the front row is going to be lacking, or the back row, I should say, is lacking. We do see the Burrow Mushrooms played there, actually discarding the Persona Blast, getting a critical trigger, giving all effects to the Vanguard, doing the last drive check, and unfortunately not hitting to anything, swinging this other swing, which is going to be 23. Now the grade 1 is much less threatening once you get to grade 3, but of course there is still the challenge that it's possible that you don't get to grade 3 sometimes against Mushiking. And of course the grade 2 being the weakest, just being a 20k attack, which is just a 10k guard, which is very easy. And then also, in addition to the fact that the grade 2s are the weakest attackers, they also tend to have the worst skill, mainly just because they have skills that require Soul Blast. And most of the time you want to be using your soul just for the crest in order to dig deeper into the deck. So a lot of the times we aren't going to be using the grade 2 skill like we did see here, opting to not basically stun that grade 2 rear guard. So looks like we did actually start off with a Persona right there. So Youth is looking to really close things out this turn. I believe we definitely got a heal trigger during the last turn, so we are at 3. But if you take a look at Mushiking's hand, that is just 4 cards there, and we're looking to stare down 4 attacks on this turn, including 2 Vanguard swings, and the other swings are going to just have absolutely massive power. I think the Vanguard might be the weakest swing here in this instance, as we do finally use Youthberk skill, discarding the Corono or Corneo, whatever I called it, actually adding a full blast to our hand from the top 3, kind of ensuring that we have it, although we could have just used the Corneo to search out that full blast and add it to our hand and put something else into the soul. So we're basically guaranteed to get there, which is honestly what makes Youth such a good deck, that basically you have full blast guaranteed for turn 3 and turn 4 most of the time. It looks like we're just going to be using Corino's skill to thin out the deck a little bit more, getting that Tempest out of the deck, adding it to our hand. Of course, we do have to put a card from our hands, so probably just going to put that Tempest there. No real reason to put anything else, although if you have anything weaker, you could potentially put that in there and then just call it the Tempest to be a rear guard, because you desperately need to fill that other rear guard. But it looks like we have another Fergosa there in order to fill that very nice niche of being a good rear guard, because it's an intercept, 5k shield, and of course there's a 15k attacker with the full blast there. So you're just gonna be soul blasting out a Tempest, and I think we just put the Tempest straight on back into soul blasting out. I believe our only non-revolt form is the ride deck Youthberk in order to draw another card. So now we're looking at very strong swings coming from this front row, as the first swing is going to be a 23. Normally I just take this attack. Looks like we are going to do that, hitting into a heal trigger, which is actually going to proc, so things go from bad to worse. And then the second check is going to be the over trigger, so that's probably just going to cinch things up. We're going to need like 2 PGs in order to live here, as that rear guard gets 100 million power, and then of course getting a critical to our Vanguard, although it isn't going to stick around for when we go into full blast. Of course, full blast is going to get his own critical, meaning that we kind of kind of just cinched the game right here. Adding back, I think that was a Corona, hitting nothing in the defensives, a PG, and then a Gather Upon Me, going into the Full Blast, giving 5k to the Fragosas with their skill, and then of course Full Blast giving an extra 15k to the entire front row, getting rid of the intercept. So basically pushing things as as bad as they can go, as this Vanguard is swinging for 38, which is almost impossible to guard unless you PG. Drive check is just going to be 1 PG, but of course, unless we have another PG and get a heal trigger, there's basically no winning in this situation. These two swings are going to be like 40 to 50. I think that other one's 50, and this other one is like 100 million 40. So that is going to be the end of the game. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.